Hello and welcome back to the Mark V podcast presented by the VVCA, Veterinary Virtual Care Association, where we've been looking at 3 years later after we got started with this back in the early days of COVID, where do things stand with telemedicine, particularly the telemedicine VCPR across the country. My first podcast focused on updates on legislation, and different patterns and some significant changes are underway, you can be sure. The second looked at basically what are the arguments that both sides have been presenting, so you can listen to them and make up your own mind about what you think makes sense or doesn't make sense. The third is get our telescopes out and look down the road at the future. Where is this going to go? And because it hasn't happened yet, obviously everything I say is a prediction or a possible prediction, but who can be sure? So you want to start with ideally some fundamentals that maybe all of us can agree on, and then wonder what that means for the future of telemedicine and the telemedicine VCPR. And let's start with the best survey data, which both the ASPCA nationally and in Colorado, there was a recent study done, and all of them point to the same sort of two facts, if you will. One is that approximately 25% of pet owners have had difficulty or been unable to get appointments for veterinary medical care in the last year. Now, we throw a number out like 25%, and you wonder, what's that mean? Well, I can tell you what it means. You have 123 million households in America, and 70% of American households have a pet. So that gets it down to about 83 to 84 million households. And 25% of those households either can't get or are having serious difficulty getting access to care, which tells you that around 21 million households in this country, 21 million households in this country are having difficulty with access to care, which means at least 21 million pets are, and it could be double that number because many households have more than one pet. Those are big numbers. Those numbers are bigger than a lot of European countries. Those numbers are bigger than every American state except California, Texas, and Florida. Those are serious numbers that tell you, all right, we need to think about what do we need for that big of a population of pets and people that can't access pet health care. The second fact gets you up to 50%. What's that? 50% of all pets in this country now are owned by millennials or Gen Zs. 50%. By the way, that's maybe the greatest news I could deliver to a veterinary audience, because millennials and Gen Zs want the same quantity and quality of healthcare for pets as they have for themselves. They have a very different model in mind, very different model of how they want healthcare for their pets. And they want this device right here, smartphone. They don't want to turn that off when it comes to pets. They're used to convenience. And if it's 9 at night or if it's on Sunday morning, doesn't matter. They want access to some form of care. And baby boomers have been the largest pet owners. And if you look at survey data, they're the least likely to use telemedicine. They've just grown up, if you will, and I'm a baby boomer. I lived most of my life without accessing care through a smartphone. But now I recently had neck surgery, and my consult with my neurosurgeon 5 days before my surgery at Mayo was a telehealth consult. I was actually at the Western Veterinary Conference in Las Vegas when Mayo told me I needed to get on the phone with a surgeon, which kind of surprised me, to be blunt. But I was in Las Vegas and surgeon was in Scottsdale. And you know what? All my questions were answered. The conversation couldn't have worked better. So boomers have some exposure to it, but let me assure you, millennials and Gen Zs, that's what they want. They're the ones using telemedicine. They have a positive view of it, way, in the 75 to 85% range, satisfied with telehealth and telecare. And that number isn't going away. In other words, more and more millennials and Gen Zs, particularly younger, will begin to have pets. They'll replace the older generation of pet owners. And those people typically want more than one pet. They grew up with pets as kids in the family of baby boomers and Gen Xers, and they want pets. And believe me, that ought to inform your thinking about, should we make it possible for them to use the convenience of electronic tools or not? The third rule is just kind of a basic rule of the economy in the United States. If you disagree, that's fine, but I'd love to see the evidence backing that. What's that? Ultimately, consumers get what they want. Ultimately, consumers get what they want. And the millennial and Gen Z consumer who use smartphones for everything in their life, everything, are not going to be denied the convenience, because veterinary trade associations say it's better that you get in to see a clinic doctor, particularly if you can't get in to see one, or it's not convenient, or you don't have a car, or you don't have the money to pay for it. And it's not limited to millennials and Gen Zs, but obviously that big block, that 50% of all pet owners now, that's what they're used to. So the question is, are we likely to follow human medicine that took, in some cases, up to 30 years to get all 50 states on board with the telemedicine VCPR? Remember, telemedicine did not have a laboratory that it could look to going back to the 1980s and 90s and say, well, they've tried it. How did it work for them? Maybe we should try it too. Veterinary medicine has a complete laboratory. You don't have to move 1 foot from where you are in this country if you have access to a phone, which we all do and typically have in our hands or our pockets, to see and use telemedicine as a human consumer or a human patient. It's out there. Veterinarians can talk to human doctors. Hospital managers can talk to human hospital managers. They can understand how we've had 30 years of refining the way telemedicine complements in-person care. Doesn't replace, but if you're across Phoenix and you're a 45-minute ride from a clinic that may or may not be able to see you, and you can use your cell phone to get started, why wouldn't you want to do that? And let's go to the articles. I can tell you that there's hundreds. They say the same thing, telemedicine works. Veterinary medicine doesn't have to invent anything. It doesn't have to take a risk. It doesn't have to gamble. It can simply follow the lead of what human medicine's done and see a way towards supplementing in-person care with a digital or virtual tool, and it works every time. And honestly, we have another laboratory up north in Ontario you've heard me talk about before, but that state, Ontario, would be the 5th largest state in America if it was an American state. It's 15 million people, full-on telemedicine for 6 years. No problems, it works. It hasn't killed practices, it's increased in-clinic traffic. Why? Because the patient, the pet owner, appreciates the convenience of the digital encounter at whatever time of day or night. And if the veterinarian says, but I still think we need to see you, they don't say, well, the hell with you, this is a trick to get me in the clinic. They're saying basically, thanks. Appreciate all the information that we've shared. I appreciate the guidance so far. And if that's your counsel, guess what they're doing in Ontario? They're following it. So the great fear factor that somehow telemedicine wipes out clinics and significantly erodes revenues simply doesn't prove true. So guess what? Just because a lawyer, in my case, makes the case for something doesn't mean people are going to change, or they're going to not fight for 25 or 30 years. But I do think once baby boomers are out of the debate, and the millennials and Gen Zs and whatever the name of the Gen Z next generation is, you're just going to see a natural shift, and it will be without much drama, much like the Arizona vote recently, where they voted almost unanimously to enact a telemedicine VCPR law with the attitude of, why are we debating it? It works. Human medicine's proven it. So let's go to Arizona. because something happened in the process in Arizona. I'm going to give you a little boring detail about how legislation gets made that could provide a beacon of hope to shorten how long we're going to debate this. After the bill that was proposed by a coalition of the Arizona Humane Society, supported by PetSmart Charities, Southern Humane Society of Arizona, the Farm Bureau, the Goldwater Institute, Veterinary Virtual Care Association. After that bill was passed in the Senate by a 24-5 vote, not quite unanimous, but a big vote, 24-5, it goes across to the Arizona House of Representatives. That works in all states except Nebraska, which only has one chamber, to my friends in Omaha, but everywhere else you have two. So it got passed out of the Senate by 24-5, had a very powerful senator's lead sponsor. It goes over to the House, it goes to a House committee. And legislators often do this, and they shouldn't be criticized. There was an effort made to see, can't we get both sides, basically the AVMA and AZ, Arizona VMA on this side, together with the supporters, can we work out something in the middle? And that's a good effort. That's what legislation often is forced to do, and good things come from that. And so the law that was passed, the legislation that was passed by the Senate was amended to possibly have a model to look at. Well, you'll find it interesting. It was amended by the AVMA. And there was some question in the minds of the members of the House committee. Now, are they going to oppose this law they amended, or where do things stand with everybody? So all the lobbyists were pulled together by the political leaders in the legislature. And I wasn't in the room, but in effect, I was the client on behalf of VVCA. And the question was put to the AVMA, did you draft this amendment? The answer was yes. Of course, he's going to answer truthfully, yes. And they said, this language, if this is what we vote on, you won't oppose it, you'll be neutral. You don't have to say you support it or you prefer it, but you're neutral or not opposed. Answer, yes. I was called. I consulted with colleagues and said, the way they've amended it is fine. That's a good bill. It's a good place to start. We don't have any problem with it. That bill went unanimously out of the House committee, went to the House floor. I believe the vote was 58-2. On the legislative record, officially, it indicates the AVMA is neutral and not opposed. It went back to the Senate. It was passed virtually unanimously again. It's now the law, was signed by the governor within a week. So there's a model that the trade associations have said we don't oppose or we're neutral on. What does it do? It has all the safeguards you might think of, and they added a couple more. The pet owner must consent. They must have a choice if they want to go to get in-person care, yes. No controlled substance can be prescribed without an in-person VCPR, no telemedicine VCPR. The veterinarian must, in her judgment, be comfortable providing telemedicine or it doesn't happen. That's all true. In this case, because of the cattlemen, they said no food animal telemedicine VCPR could be created. Not necessarily, but guess what? If that's what the food animal interests want, I think we could live with that in any state if we had to. And importantly, you can issue a prescription for a non-controlled substance. You can issue a prescription in the original bill for 30 days on a telemedicine VCPR, and you can renew it for 30 on a telemedicine engagement. They changed the bill to 14 and 14, and we said, fine. If after 28 days, you don't have a sense of what's wrong with the pet, diagnostics probably make sense. You may need some blood samples or fecals to see what's really going on. And of course, it said the obvious, which is you have to still honor any other state's laws or federal laws in the process. Practical, modest, and a good place to start. And nobody opposed it, which is why the vote was the way it was when it went back to the whole House and the Senate. That bill is a model now, and we'll make sure that people can read that language and see it. And perhaps since then, the AVMA's changed their position, but they drafted it. They said on the record, and they made it clear to legislative leadership, they did not oppose it and they were neutral. If that bill can be the template, let's get that in front of multiple states and see if we don't have the basis for an agreement. And you know what? It's like any law. Watch it, watch how things play out. Hope that it goes as well as it did in Ontario with no problems after 6 years, or in the 19 states with COVID waivers, no problems. Watch it. If there are things that need to be changed to make it tighter or maybe make it less restrictive, depending, guess what? That's what legislatures exist to do. That's what voters get to do, to vote people in to say, okay, this worked, but it could be made better, or this didn't work, it can be fixed. So I think that's a pathway, and you're going to see the VVCA actively supporting that approach. And we'll see if the trade associations change their view. But if not, I think we've got a starting point, and we may end what could otherwise be multiple decades of acrimonious debate that I suspect none of us enjoy or hope is the future. That's Mark Cushing's thoughts on telemedicine and the VCPR in the middle of 2023. I appreciate this being presented by VVCA, and there'll be more Mark 5 podcasts in the future. Thanks for watching.
This episode was sponsored by My Simple Pet Lab. Meet the future of pet wellness made simple by vets for pets. My Simple Pet Lab delivers pet care solutions that are fast, simple, and reliable. From vet-approved routine pet wellness tests, care kits, to over-the-counter products. Keeping your pet healthy has never been easier. Check out mysimplepetlab.com for more information.